you may want to rebut, but let's do it this way. Brian, you'll go first. I want to ask two questions, combine them into one. It says, what is your plan to delete the deficit and adhere to a conservative budget? Will you actively push for zero-based budgeting for the Texas budget? Go ahead, Brian.
My first thing.
Great question. So on the border compact, again, and David and I hadn't discussed that until tonight. I didn't know the reason for that vote. But let's be clear. In the House, we had one chance to bring the border compact to the floor. That was a vote. I voted yes. I would vote yes again. We need the border compact to come to the floor for a vote. As far as the budgeting goes, it's been really frustrating. As bad as the situation is in Washington, we have our own problems in Austin as well. Now, the good news is if you look at the whole budget in Austin, it is growing by less than population growth plus inflation. It's still growing too much, but it's kept under control, certainly compared to what's happening in D.C. Zero-based budgeting is important. My first session in the legislature, 2003, when y'all first sent me down there, we had a $10 billion budget shortfall. Many people on the other side of the aisle were saying you're going to have to raise taxes. Some folks said you're going to have to bring in a state income tax. I think I know where we are on that. We don't need a state income tax. We're one of only 6 states in America without a state income tax, and I want to keep it that way. So in 2003, we cut that budget by $10 billion. We balanced it without raising taxes. That just wasn't an option for us. We had to live within our means. We've had to do that a number of times. The budget process in Texas is much better, much more transparent than the system in Washington, but we've still got work to do. One of the good things we have, of course, is the requirement of a balanced budget. You know what happens in Washington when they need more money? They just roll the presses, right? They just create the money. We can't do that in Austin, and that's good, because if you let politicians deficit spend, they will. So the answer is to get people involved and to scour every line of the budget. And let me say, I'm thankful to tell you that on the Appropriations Committee, I don't see my job as bringing home the bacon. I don't want to take money from him and give it to somebody else. I want folks to keep the bacon. We don't need to take it to the government in the first place. And so that's what we tried to do, to pass conservative budgets and to make sure that the money is being spent where it's supposed to be spent.
Mr. Lee.
You know what? You've got to take the budget every year, and you've got to go through it, line item by line item. It's not enough to look at each department. You've got to look at everything where they're spending money. I agree, no state income tax is not necessary. But let me tell you what is necessary. There's a lot of waste and fraud and abuse in our system. I myself, I'm an audio prosthologist. I do hearing aids. And I work in a lot of nursing homes. And I can tell you I've seen time after time after time where somebody's in there, you've seen it. You have a loved one goes in the hospital, they come out, holy cow, they get a mountain of stuff from all these companies. The diabetic shoes, and they're not even diabetic socks. They get the potty chairs, the shower chairs, the hospital beds, hearing aids. I've seen in the nursing homes where someone has given someone a hearing aid. It's $5,000 of your tax dollars. $5,000. And the person is screaming, I don't want a hearing aid. You look at their test, they barely qualified for it. They can hear, but under state standards, they qualified for it. So that guy got $5,000 of your tax dollars. Let me tell you what, the waste, the fraud, and abuse has to be gone. And you know what? We catch people doing it, we need to prosecute them. We need to put them in jail because that's your money. And if somebody says, on Medicaid, if you're on Medicaid and you need something, we ought to be able to get it to you. But if you're jumping up and down screaming, I don't want it, then we should not give it to you and waste the taxpayers' money. I support zero-based budgeting, and I support a true balanced budget. I do not support taking $3 to $5 billion that are dedicated for one purpose and then undedicating them with House Bill 6. I hope you'll read the caption sometime. You'll think you're in Austin where you're creating and recreating and undedicating and abolishing accounts. It is nonsense. I knew enough about it my freshman session to vote against it.
But in my second and third session, we studied it and I learned it, and I've been fighting against it every time. And we do that. Volunteer fire departments is a good illustration. We made some progress in this area, but it's only $31 million of $3 to $5 billion. Where you're taxed for farms, homes, and ranches, you have an insurance fee, premium. Well, that goes $31 million, supposedly, to volunteer fire department assistance, training, and equipment. But until this biennium, less than half of it went to that purpose. It was used to balance the budget, to fund other programs. And we didn't just do it with $31 million, we did it with $3 to $5 billion. I voted against the budget because of that Wizard of Oz bill, consolidating all the dedicated funds with the general revenue and mixing them all up. It is wrong. It's taxation with misrepresentation. Then I've stood up again and again for transparency in the conference committee process. Because what happens is 5 people from the Senate, 5 people from the House end up determining a lot of your budget. And it's been happening in private until this year when they did it in public. And then they went ahead and violated the rules, again, with respect to asking permission for those funds to be spent. And they asked for forgiveness after the fact.